The city always seemed to be wrapped in rain when I was at my lowest. On gallery rejection night, the June drizzle in Curitiba felt especially biting. The scrap's damp air seeped through the thin navy of my old suit, gluing my shirt to my chest, a persistent chill that followed the ache from inside my ribs. I pressed the gallery door closed behind me, gently, as if fearing it might shred the vestige of dignity I still carried. The white light inside threw my reflection on the glass, a narrow face with sharp cheeks, watery brown eyes rimmed in raw red. I could still hear the director's voice, flat and apologetic. She called my colors too loud, my forms unresolved. She handed my portfolio back as one might return a stray, half-ruined kitten. It just doesn't fit our vision, Davy. Outside, streetlights gnashed through fog. The sidewalk was stubbled with puddles. My umbrella had snapped an hour earlier, the little hook now bobbed from my backpack, useless. I walked, blinking rain, the city's sycamores stooping over empty benches. Back in my apartment, my shoebox kingdom above a bakery in Rabusas, I stripped off the suit and pressed my forehead to the window pane. Frosted breath, the muffled slap of tires below. Oil paints arrayed around my easel, the top canvas still unfinished. Leaning against the sill, I let my eyes wander over the painting, hoping distance would solve what hours up close had ruined. I must have stood a long time, tracing the bold arcs I'd laid down, angry crimson clashing with abrupt splinters of yellow, a riot of movement I couldn't quite resolve. Was it ridiculous to dream this would hang one day on a gallery wall? A voice in my head, my father's probably, said, "Not everything's for you, Davy." Shame crept in quietly, the way it always had since I was a boy. When I clambered back to bed, sleep evaded me, and the night stretched thin as paper. At home, mornings were an exercise in not being seen. I learned that early, ducking between my older brother's jibes and the impatient clang of pots in my mother's hands. They watched the world for slips and weakness. My art was always an easy target. Look at Michelangelo there, covered in paint again. That was Diego, the eldest, tall as a pine and twice as spiky. He prided himself on his practicality. At 17, he already worked shifts with our uncle at the auto shop. "You know what color buys, Davy? Nothing. Go hammer some real nails." Even my mother flinched at my dreams. Though in her defense, it was a flinch born from worry rather than true malice. "Painting is nice, filho, but how will you eat?" she would ask while wiping her hands on an old dish towel. Our kitchen had its own mood of permanence, always the scent of onions and garlic, always a hill of laundry threatening avalanche from the corner chair. Neighbors, too, noticed my oddness. Dona Cita once watched me painting in our cracked little garden and clucked her tongue. "Vai trabalhar, menino. Isso não põe pão na mesa." Go work, boy. That won't put food on the table. Their laughter, whenever I brought my sketchpad to family gatherings, rang through years like stones in my shoes. At first, I tried to hide all the cutting. My sketchbooks went under the mattress, paint-stained rags washed after dark. As I got older, hiding grew harder, so I stopped caring, at least outwardly. Inside, every dig and raised eyebrow carved me out a little more. Still, I painted. On bad days, I told myself it was a curse. I saw beauty differently, and my eyes would never let me rest. On good ones, I called it a secret strength. I scraped by on bakery wages, swallowing the flour dust air, keeping my clock tight. Each evening, hunched over canvases until night surrendered to black-blue morning. After rejection, I'd stare at the walls and imagine my colors crowding galleries, strangers pausing to tilt their heads, hungry to understand what I meant. But time pressed on, and with each not a good fit, the voice in my head swelled. Maybe, I thought, the others were right. Maybe Curitiba wasn't built for someone like me. I still visited family sometimes, birthdays, New Year's dinners where relatives squashed tight on mismatched chairs. Found a real job yet? Diego would laugh, winking at his wife. He's still drawing stick people. My mother pressed seconds on my plate, not meeting my gaze. I noticed it, the hush that followed when I declined to talk about my creative pursuits. When bills grew sharp, I took more overtime at the bakery and started painting smaller, on scraps of cardboard. Ironically, these little pieces, raw, unframed, each one an explosion of color, were the first to gather attention. A tourist wandered into the bakery and bought one off me, pressing reais into my palm. "There's something alive in this," she said, that glowed inside me, soft and stubborn. I started sticking them up at street corners. A blue-limbed violinist, a crowd rendered in rough greens, a yawning dog splashed with orange. Soon there were whispers. Some shopkeeper offered to hang 3 in her window. That summer, graffiti artists in Agua Verde invited me to paint a wall. I spent a week under scaffolding, blending paint with river water. My hands cracked, but my heart loud. Local teenagers drifted by and nodded approval. No words, just upturned palms. Still, galleries seemed locked away, and my family's derision clung like fog. One night, years into this slender rebellion, an email slid in from a gallery in Sao Paulo. A small one, yes, but real. Their signature heavy with digital confidence. They wanted to show my street pieces in a group exhibition. It required something new, bolder. For 3 months, I burnt through paint and sleep, barely pausing to eat. Opening night was a riot of nerves. As I walked inside, those old voices clamored. "What are you doing here, Davi? You don't belong. You'll look ridiculous." But strangers came and paused and stared. Some smiled. I saw a woman wiping away a tear while standing before my Rua 5 in indigo. Suddenly, it was very clear to me that for all my family's scorn, these people felt what I felt. A critic wrote an article. Another gallery offered a solo slot. Little by little, impossible things began to happen. Paintings sold, first to tourists, then collectors. I got a letter inviting me to mount a show back in Curitiba, my home, full circle. When I held the invitation card in my hands, heavy cream paper inked with my name, I simply stared for a while. My first solo exhibition, right there in the heart of the city, the Municipal Gallery in Praça 19 de Dezembro. The place I'd circled as a boy, pressed close to my mother's hand while she pointed out the Homem Nu statue. The urge to call my family pulsed inside me, but something rougher kept me back. A remnant of every echo, every snicker around our battered dinner table. Instead, I called Dona Cida. She didn't believe me at first. "I'll see with my own eyes, menino," she challenged. "Don't go getting fancy on us." Gallery days were feverish. I swept gray paint up the walls, framed my largest canvases, arranged cards. On opening night, as I stepped into the blue-lit space, the room hummed with quiet anticipation. Faces drifted in, a few colleagues from the bakery, some young artists I'd met on the street, people I'd never seen. Then I saw my brothers. Diego, in his pressed jeans and checked shirt, arms crossed like a stubborn gate. Mauro lingered a step behind him, uncertain. My mother entered, spine stiff. My cousin Leah gripped her arm, nervous as a bird. My heart cramped, there in the perfect, terrible silence between us. I nodded and beckoned them in, keeping my chin high. In the glassy glow of the gallery, the world felt suspended, breathless. They wandered. I watched as Diego stopped in front of my largest piece, a cityscape in bruised purples, the towers sharp with longing. He said nothing. His eyes flickered over the little plaque beside the canvas. From where I stood, I could see the words, "On loan from the Bernardi." A little girl pointed, whispering, "Mamãe, era aquele na parede lá do café." Her mother smiled, nudging her closer. Leah stood next to me, eyes bright. They're saying your price went up, she murmured, a grin trembling beneath her words. People are here just for you, Dovey. I smiled, feeling a tenderness rise up in me, smoothed by years, yet still edged with steel. I guess that's true. A man in a tailored suit and glasses approached, card outstretched. You must be Dovey Brandon. We'd like to discuss a commission, if you have time next week. My mother watched this, her lips parted. She swayed back as if to steady herself. I saw it, pride tentative, wrapped in confusion, but unmistakable. Diego, hands still jammed in his jacket pocket, read each placard twice. Finally, he sidled over, looking sheepish. You did all this? He asked. All this, I answered. He glanced down. Lots of people, for a painting. I nodded. Lots of people. It occurred to me then, with a clarity searing as sunrise, that I was not angry. Not anymore. I no longer wanted to prove them wrong just to watch them squirm. I wanted them to see who I was, standing tall in the world I made from colors and faith. The gallery director appeared beside us. Davi, could you step this way? There's press here to see you. As I walked, my mother caught my sleeve. Her hand, dry and warm, held fast to my wrist. I was wrong, Filio, she said quietly, in the thicketed hush between two exhibits. I didn't know how big your dream was. I didn't know it could be real. I looked at the lines on her face.